today, guys, we're going to learn how to put a hinge on our locket. This one is a sample that Eric is working on, and he's working on getting his flange, his hinge flange, flat. Like that. So instead of me doing a locket every time I do a demo, we're going to pretend that this is my locket, and this is going to be acting as the hinge flange today. All right? So just so you know, none of you are really at this point of making a hinge, because adding the hinge to your project is probably one of the last things you're going to do. All right? So if you're going to be soldering this tubing is going to be cut into 3 pieces. So those are pretty small, right? So if you were to solder those on and get them all ready and lined up and perfect, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I have to sweat solder this huge piece of metal to the top of my piece of locket. What might happen to those little tiny pieces of metal?
They'll just fall off.
They could melt, they could fall off. So you want to really think about the steps, and you want to look at the back sheet of your handout, because it tells you when you should probably do stuff. And some of you might be different, so you might want to take notes on what steps you should do first. So if any soldering or any sawing that you're doing to the surface of this, you should do before you solder. Even sawing, because think about it. If you start sawing something and you accidentally aren't paying attention to where this is, you could start crushing it by accident. So these are pretty fragile. They're more like towards the end of your project. Except if you're riveting. You always rivet last, right? Because if you're going to rivet something, you want to keep it the color before you rivet it. So remember, hinge, patina stuff, rivet your pieces together. All right? And in the end, you're going to actually be riveting your pin together. You're kind of flaring out the hinge part so that it doesn't fall apart anymore. That's kind of technically a rivet. And I'm going to show you that part later. So you have a flange. I asked you guys to make it 1 inch. You could change it if you needed to. I think Eric might have made his a little bit. Oh no, it's 1 inch. Perfect.
Nice.
Perfect. Okay. So he has his 1 inch, and what he would be doing is he would be checking to see if they're flush, like that. If you pull it out and you push them together, there's not really that big of a gap, is there? He's pretty close. He's almost ready to put his hinge on after he does all his other metal work around it. So here's your little hinge container, and this is going to be on my desk, and they're already pre-cut, and you grab one of these. Unless you need one that's longer. Some of you might have made a longer hinge, I'm not sure. You'll have to cut your own tubing. So that's what they'll be on my desk. Once you get it, first thing you do is you want to file or sand the top and the bottom, because you want to get it really flat. And what we're preparing right now is we're making the knuckles of the hinge. So if you looked at has anybody ever looked at a door hinge? All of you, you go in and out of them every day, right? I hope we looked at them before. So usually they have 2 knuckles and 1 knuckle, right? One's connected to this is connected to the wall, and this is connected to the door, and it kind of goes back and forth. That is exactly what we're doing with our locket. 1 knuckle will be in the middle, and it will be attached to your top piece. The outside knuckles will be attached to your bottom piece, okay? So if they're not flat and they're like this, you're gonna have a gap, and it's not gonna open and close very well. So you wanna make sure that you take the time to make them nice and precise. So I have these 2 edges filed flat. I have this awesome ruler right here, and I'm gonna figure out where I need to cut it. You can be creative. I'm gonna cut it so that if it's 1 inch long, I'm gonna cut it, the 2 outside ones are gonna be 1/4 of an inch, leaving the middle one being 1/2 of an inch. I like it if the middle one's a little bit longer, because there's only one of them, and it makes it a little bit stronger. But you could also divide it down the middle in 3 equal parts. It doesn't matter. So I'm gonna mark it with a pencil, and then I like to scribe it with a scribe, or I really like using files because it's more permanent and I can see it better, and that way it won't rub off. So wherever I make these marks, that's where I'm gonna cut it. Okay? Remember cutting small tubing for rivets? It's pretty fun, right?
Oh yeah.
I love it. Okay. So there's a couple ways you can do it. You can put it in the ring clamp and hold it and saw it like that. You can hold it with pliers, or you can hold it with your hands. It's you just gotta be patient either way you go. So, I've already cut them into 3 pieces. All of you know how to do that already. So here's my 3 parts. And so we're gonna pretend that this is gonna be my top piece and this is my bottom piece. And I'm gonna kind of set it up in here to see if it is, this is just a scrap piece of metal, so it might not be 1 inch, but just know that. So it's nice and flush and it's ready to go.